I'm here at Matt's house, and he's supposed to be awake, but I've been texting him, and he hasn't answered. So I'm going to go wake him up now. Babe, wake up. It's almost noon. You have an interview today. Babe, wake up. Huh? Matt, it's almost noon. You have your interview today. Huh? Wake up.
Crap. All right.
Get up.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of got to backtrack for this question just a little bit. By the way, good morning. I started lifting weights when I was about 15 and a half. I had been doing that for a couple of years, and somewhere along the line I was Googling, YouTubing videos on training, and I stumbled upon Nick Wright when he was doing his vlogs about his natural competitive bodybuilding shows back when he was a teenager, and I was like, whoa. So it kind of put it on the radar that natural bodybuilding exists. So eventually, when I was in college, got into a fraternity, had some free time, I was like, I want to do something, and I was like, hey, I kind of want to compete. Of course, I didn't immediately hop onto a bodybuilding stage. First, I had to find out, where are these stages? When do they have these bodybuilding shows? What organizations are there? What shows can I compete in? So I had to do tons of research. Google became my best friend. Stumbled upon naturalbodybuildingevents.com, which is kind of a website that has pretty much most of the natural bodybuilding shows. Eventually, I did more research, looked up drug testing, made sure that I never took any banned substances in my entire life. I didn't, so I was like, cool, I can compete in these shows. I found a show that was about 12 weeks out, and I was like, okay, cool. I printed the application form, sent it in with a money order. I was like, sweet, I'm actually fully applied to do the show now. And lastly, I went to bodybuilding.com, purchased these cherry bottom posing trunks, which were super ugly. I never should have bought them, but bought them, and eventually they came in the mail. First and foremost, science and structure was not a part of my training or nutrition protocol back in that 2010 contest prep. I didn't know that calories were king, macros were queen. I had no idea about that. And I was more so into, good foods and bad foods. I was into super high training volumes in the gym so that I could burn fat that way. And I stayed away from doing cardio because I thought that cardio literally ate your muscles. So I was having 2, 3, 4 hour workouts of hundreds upon hundreds of reps, thinking that was going to build my muscle while getting me shredded. Obviously that didn't happen. What also happened was I went online, I actually found a pretty decently made contest prep guide for like NPC bodybuilders. And it's funny because I didn't follow the nutrition or training guidelines that probably actually would have helped me. I remember actually hearing the words carbohydrates, fats, calories in it, but instead I only followed the sauna and sodium manipulation protocol, which really was ramped up towards peak week. The funny thing is this, I actually looked awesome before I began this contest prep, and here's what I looked like. But when I began this contest prep, I went from about like 170 or maybe even slightly below 170 pounds all the way into the mid 180s. In terms of the foods I was eating, the actual foods, obviously I thought everything was either good or bad, but it was kind of a reverse psychology version of that, because every once in a while there's a new trend where people are like, fat's not the evil, carbs are the evil, or carbs not evil, fat's evil. It happens every single year. There's trends that go on. And the current trend for me was no carbs during the week, extremely high fats, extremely high protein. In other words, I was on a severe surplus, an incredible caloric surplus. And then during the weekends, I would have as many carbs as I wanted, but I would try to have like no fat and even slightly low protein. and I gained tons of weight quickly. Peak week, there really was no peak week. It was more like frustration week and nervous and anxiety week. I was just freaking out. I hadn't made a posing routine. 3 days out or 2 days out from the show, I started applying Dream Tan to my body. 1 day out, more Dream Tan. Morning of the show, even more Dream Tan. And oh yeah, the night before the show, this was really the big thing right here was I read in the contest prep guide, the one that I didn't follow besides the sauna protocol, I read that eating a big steak and a big baked potato would seriously bring out the shreds and vascularity on stage. So I went to Cattleman's Steakhouse and had like the biggest steak they offered. I think it was a 24-ounce steak. I think it was a 24-ounce steak with a baked potato. It was like the best day of my life. But you know what the funny thing is this? I was so fat. I mean, not actually fat, but in terms of contest prep, I was so overweight that the steak didn't even taste that good. Whereas when you're in a contest prep, rice cakes taste good. This steak didn't even taste good. I was in that much of a caloric surplus as is that I didn't even enjoy that meal. It was one of the most nerve-wracking days of my life. Obviously, I wasn't prepared. I got to the show and everyone kept telling me, man, you're big. And the way I heard that is I received that as a compliment. I was like, dude, they're telling me I'm jacked. But really that was kind of like a double-edged sword. It was kind of like a nice way of saying, bro, you're fat. Like, you aren't conditioned. And I didn't really realize that until after the show. I wasn't sure how much water to drink, so I think I went with the extremely conservative route, aka none. So I was just like sipping on water throughout the day, so I was extremely dehydrated. And just before stepping on stage, I took niacin, which is like a supplement to basically flush your skin. And in some situations, or in some pre-workouts, you'll find it. But it's not something I personally recommend anymore to take before stepping on stage. But in this guide, the one that I followed with just the sauna protocol that I followed, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take double the niacin that they recommend because I wanna be like super shredded on stage. And this is all the bro science talking right over here. But I took all these pills, stepped on stage, dehydrated, hungry, sort of, and extremely hot in the face. I was so uncomfortable. Posing was like very hot, and overall I just didn't really have that good of a day, I'll just say. In terms of the show itself, there was only 2 competitors in each of the classes that I competed in. I did teenagers 18 to 19 years old. That was one class. I was in a class with this other kid who actually did a contest prep. And I competed in the novice juniors class against this one guy who had quite a bit of muscle on him, and he didn't contest prep either, but obviously he just had way more muscle than me. 2 competitors in each class. Simple answer, no, I didn't win. But even worse, I actually looked the worst that I've ever looked on that stage. You guys can probably guess what my number 1 piece of advice, number 1 take-home point is gonna be. Yeah, hire a coach. Of course, not just any other coach, not just some dude who's been tracking macros for a week and now is accepting payments through PayPal. No, a person who has prepped many people to get to where you want to go. So that means if you want to step on stage, become a pro natural bodybuilder, or just be the most shredded you've ever been, it may be helpful to hire a coach who has done that for other people. And you can ask that person, you know, who have you prepped? I want to talk to them, I want to email them, I want to message them, and you could get references. You seriously can. So that's the #1 piece of advice. A coach can help you fast track your results and save you, weeks or months of research, and of course months, weeks, years of self-experimentation. Hi.
Sorry.
#2, and this was kind of a personal take-home point. #2 was to do better research on the natural bodybuilding organizations and which shows to compete in, because not all shows are created equal. Some organizations are just better than others. I'll just say it straight up. Some organizations are much better to compete in than others. Some are more credible. The lighting at the shows are better. The people you deal with are just and it's just better to compete in some shows even than other shows. Some shows will be far away from you, some shows will be close, and of course, don't miss this, guys. You don't want, or I personally don't like competing in shows where nobody shows up. That is boring, #1. It's kind of silly, #2. Like, if you're gonna get on stage at all, like, you might as well get a bunch of people on stage. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing when you're next to just one other person on stage being compared, and it's like you're practically wasting your time, especially if that person's way more jacked and shredded or way less jacked and shredded than you. Research, find a show, if you're like me, that there's gonna be tons and tons of competitors where you're actually gonna have a good time. The lighting's gonna be good. You know it because you looked at the previous years. You could do this, guys. Go on the websites, go on the show's websites, and look at the previous year's competitors. You'll be able to see the kind of caliber you'll be competing against, the kind of stage lighting that they might most likely have at the show that you're gonna compete in, and you'll just get a much better feel of what the show will be like. So do that kind of research, guys. #3 is prepare, prepare, prepare. #4 is practice your posing. Do it on a weekly basis. Do it, way before you think it's even necessary, because it's better to be more prepared than less prepared, especially with your posing, because at a bodybuilding show, it could account for anywhere between 5 or 15% in terms of the grand scheme of things on stage. And point #5, your entirety of prep is way more important than peak week or even show day. What happens on the 3 or 4 months leading up to a show is way more important than what you do in the final minutes to really perfect that physique. The peak week manipulations of carbs, sodium, etc. will make the smallest percentage difference compared to the entire prep. A great peak week will make 0 to like 2, 3, 4% difference maximum. It's all about what happens before that peak week that really matters. So the first show was in October 2010. My next show was in July 2011. And I actually hired 3D Muscle Journey in March of 2011. So I think it set me up with about a 15-week contest prep, which is funny because nowadays that seems pretty quick and aggressive. But back then, of course, I had no idea what quick, aggressive, or slow really was. I was just so excited to have a coach finally and to really bring on the shreds. So this time around, this 2011 contest prep, I had the help of Eric Helms, my coach. He's a 3D Muscle Journey coach, and he is well known in the natural bodybuilding world now. This time around, I tracked my morning weight every single day. I tracked my macros, obviously calories, indirectly, because you track macros, you track calories. I tracked my macros every single day. I hit my macros perfectly, and immediately I set up like this, I set up a static template, so I was eating the same exact foods and meals every single day that equaled up to the prescribed macro totals that Eric Helms would basically gave me to start with, or adjusted throughout the prep. On a weekly basis, he would analyze my weigh-ins with the macros that I hit and tell me what changes, if necessary, I needed to make. I wasn't doing tons and tons and tons of volume in the gym like I was the first time around, because I thought that, you know, more volume on these deadlifts, squats, and bench press equals more fat loss. But no, I learned firsthand that controlling my caloric intake along with controlling my caloric output, cardio, will really be how I control my body composition. So we started with just a little bit of cardio, and closer to the event, we were adding more and more. And also the funny thing was that we actually started me on 2 low carbs, so we were bumping up carbs throughout the prep. From 200, we bumped it up slowly to actually 300, not slowly, pretty quickly to 300, and I was still losing. And then towards the end, I was down to around 250. So macros generally was always about 50 fat and 225 protein, with the carbs starting at 200, coming up to 300, going back down to 250, and the cardio started off with, you know, just 1 session a week, and then we slowly raised it to a maximum of, I think, 2 or 3 400 calorie steady state sessions, along with 2 high intensity sessions per week. I practice posing more than anybody else I know. Every single week I did all of the mandatory poses, all the symmetry poses, filmed that and sent it off to Eric Helms. I also had the privilege of being taught how to pose by the man himself, Jeff Alberts, the Godfather, who took my posing to a whole another level. So I went down to his house along with some other competitors. He stood us in front of the mirror, broke down every single pose. It was just incredible how just an hour or 2 could make you look like a completely different person in every single pose. Just make you look way more jacked, way more lean even. Just if you hit the glutes right, or angle, you know, your calves this way, or your elbow, put that here, it makes such a huge difference, and you can display a completely different physique on stage when you know how to pose versus when you don't. You're a completely different person. You aren't a goofball when you know how to pose. If you don't know how to pose on stage and other people do, you look like the goofball. You look like the dude who didn't prepare for what he was about to do. And posing practice is extremely important. So 4 weeks out, did posing practice with Jeff Alberts. So obviously, once again, thank you, Jeff. And 2 weeks out, we did more posing practice. And then 1 week out, went over to Jeff's place, and he actually helped me with my posing routine. So obviously, training and nutrition were completely different. They were actually optimized, if I could use that word in that situation. It was completely different, but there was also the community that I was a part of now. One, having done YouTube videos, I connected a lot with other YouTubers, but also through Facebook, I was connecting a lot with other natural competitive bodybuilders, as well as 3MJ specific athletes. So it was really cool that I was starting to meet way more people that were involved in the sport along with me. We're kind of prepping together, and it was really cool to just have friends that did the same thing that I did. So that support system in this sport is something I highly recommend. So at the Muscle Mayhem, I definitely brought my best physique ever up until that point. I came out weighing like 155 pounds. There was 3 people in my class. I took second place to the person who took first place and went on to win the overall title. I think his name was Cecil Green, and genetic freak. So I didn't beat myself up on that. I definitely brought my best package possible. 2 weeks later, I drove up to Washington, and I took first place in my class of 6 or 7 people. And what was really cool was that Jeff Alberts' help with the posing and the routine, and especially, you know, the posing practice that we did on a weekly basis, that I did on a weekly basis, and then the posing that Jeff helped me with, helped me secure that first place, whereas I should have taken second had I not been that good at posing. Because the person that took first place, he was like a man probably around 40 years old, been lifting for longer than I'd been born, way more muscle than me. Think about Raymond Corrado, think about the online coach, kind of like his build. He wasn't as lean as I've seen Raymond before, but think of the online coach. That's who I was on stage next to, and they called my name instead of his for first place. I was like, whoa! Or actually, they called his name for second place instead of me, and I was like, whoa, hell yeah! All because I displayed a better physique. I didn't have a better physique than him. I displayed a better physique than him, and that's the thing with bodybuilding shows. It's all about displaying the physique. Now in the overall showdown, I was against, I know this, Benny Mobley, and I forget the middle or the middle height guy that won, but I was in the overall against two just really jacked guys that have been lifting for longer than I've been born. So I definitely there was no hard feelings that I didn't take an overall trophy, because I was like, okay, makes sense. Both are genetically more gifted than me. They've been lifting for longer than I've been born. No hard feelings. I'm happy with the physique that I brought here to this stage. It was my best physique. It was even better than the Muscle Mayhem. So I was really pleased with how that show went, and in general how that 2011 prep went. I looked my best ever. I even went down to SoCal before the shows with BB pics, and we took some of the most iconic photos that people know me for, as well as some of the footage that really kind of put me, just fast-tracked me into the YouTube world, and even got some of my pictures viral and stuff like that. So even though I had a coach, Eric Helms, who, I know I'm biased here, but he is one of the best bodybuilding coaches in the world, hands down, period. Even though I had the best coach in the world, I still had never firsthand experienced a contest prep. In other words, I'd never gotten to unhealthily low levels of body fat. So I had no idea what I was gonna get myself into. When you get down to really low body fat, you are much more irritable. You're emotionally, you're a bit less stable than how you normally be with a regular level of body fat. It is such a huge difference, because in the back of your mind, there's always hunger and food. But your willpower and your determination, especially during that first contest prep, made it so that I wasn't really hungry or I wasn't really starved. But it's there. But I have so much motivation and passion that I blocked out completely, and somewhere, something along the line has to compensate or take over for that deficiency. And for me, with that 2011 season, it was really, it was relationships. It was me and friends, me and my girlfriend at the time. I was really hard to be around. And the funny thing is, when you're shredded or really lean, you might think that it's other people that have a problem, but no, it was me. Anyway, I had a really great season. I knew, and I told myself, hey, I want to take 2 years, come back in 2013 and really kick some butt with some more muscle and even more time to lean down, so more potential to maintain muscle mass. Eric Helms hooked me up with a reverse diet guide that he wrote himself that told me, okay, do this. So we're slowly kind of working my food back up, and I had this guide, but I didn't quite have the experience nor the willpower to actually execute it. So I tried to execute this plan to slowly increase my food with a good initial bump, but it didn't happen. It was just way too hard, especially with little vacations that I was going on and eating out at restaurants. I wasn't able to actually hit the macros that I was prescribed. Now, physique-wise, because I lacked, the ability to adhere to my reverse diet, my physique kind of took the hit, and pretty immediately I gained 10 pounds really quickly. I remember just within a week or so, maybe 10 days, I was up like 10 pounds. And that's just a little bit faster than I recommend most people. I went from 155 to 165 in a jiffy. And the body fat redistribution is funny. It's different than the first time around when you're losing that weight. So when it came back on, it actually went back on directly on my abs, guys, believe it or not. So my abs looked completely washed out, but I still had shredded glutes, shredded quads. My arms were still somewhat shredded, but they started getting kind of watery too. So it was kind of funny that, you know, I'm known as the guy with abs, but once that I put on that 10 pounds immediately, my abs were gone. Or not gone, but to me they were gone. So lessons learned, failures and successes. I learned the more time you have, the slower you can take your cut and the more muscle mass you can maintain. Granted, I didn't have as much muscle mass in 2011 as I did in 2013, but with a more aggressive cut and also not paying complete attention to maintaining strength, I didn't maintain as much muscle as I did in 2013. In 2011, obviously, I learned that having a coach completely fast tracks your trip to success. Here's probably one of the main things, and it's that just 12, 15, 20 weeks of everyday counting macros can teach you so much about your body, your metabolism, food, you know, how much food equals how many calories. You get a much better idea of how many calories you're actually consuming in some of the other foods, in some of the fast foods and stuff like that. So it really taught me a lot. It gave me the best education on nutrition, the best education in terms of application. Of course, not textbook education, but real world education, application. I learned that you may be doing a contest prep, but the rest of the world isn't. You may think of yourself as, you know, natural bodybuilder, Matt Ogus, intensity, dedication, yeah. But everyone else just sees you as, hey, that's George. That's just George. So remember that and realize that though you may be really into bodybuilding, lifting weights, or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that other people have to be into it. One kind of, I guess, failure you could say is that I learned that you shouldn't prioritize prep over everything else. I kind of, through failing, of course, I learned that all you really gotta do is hit the macros, do the cardio, hit the gym, do the training, weigh yourself in the morning, and that's really all you gotta do to reach success with your body composition. You can be like a quote-unquote normal person. It really just matters that you do those main things, the plain things, and you don't have to worry about all these little things and stress yourself out. You can still be a normal person. In 2011, I learned that Dream Tan looks awesome on most people. I learned that it's very important to adhere to a reverse diet. You guys may have been listening and reading about reverse dieting these days with you know, this article or that article, and different coaches will prescribe different speeds and rates of reverse dieting, but mainly it's just a psychological plan. It's mainly just a plan in terms of adherence and anti-binging. That's really what a reverse diet's all about. It's kind of like a plan to keep someone from putting on more fat than is necessary. It's important to, you know, after a competition, getting up to a healthy level of body fat where you can start building mass. For me, that might be like 8%, let's just say. But from show day, you don't have to get to the 8% in a day. You don't. You could take a little bit of time to get there. Like I said, the main thing is you don't want to binge for days or after a show, which is what I kind of did. I ate a lot, and you don't really want to immediately hop on a huge surplus. You kind of want to get to around maintenance or work your way towards the maintenance, be there for a little bit, and then go from there. You don't want to, and this is what happens to everyone, you immediately let your hunger and appetite dictate how much food you consume, and your appetite's telling you to consume double your macro intake generally right after a show. So you're just eating and eating and eating, and that's why people put on so much fat right after a show. Trust me guys when I say this, you could put on fat way faster and easier than you could burn it off. Way faster. And especially if you just did a contest prep. Even before your show, have a plan for after your show and make sure that you follow it, especially in the first 2 to 4 weeks. It's really important. Last but not least, make sure that you give yourself time to practice your posing. Even if you practice it once a week, consider practicing it even more leading up to your bodybuilding show. So one difference with my 2013 prep was that I took a lot more time. I gave myself more time to get shredded compared to 2011. I think I gave myself over 30 weeks actually to get stage ready. And instead of eating the same foods every day, I actually kind of freestyled each day, hitting my macros by the end of the day instead of following a meal plan that I had set for myself. Now generally I ate the same foods, basically the same foods every single day. It was just in different amounts or based on kind of how I felt. I would eat more of this, more of that, and once in a while I'd be like, okay, I'll add this in. I kind of feel like having that kind of rice cake. Nah, I want a little bit of ice cream. And as long as I was eating, multiple fruits, vegetables, and hitting a fiber and making sure, hitting a fiber goal and making sure that most of my food intake was whole foods, like 80, 90%, then I was good, and I gave some discretionary calories to whatever I ate or whatever I wanted to eat. During this 2013 prep, I had a much easier time balancing relationships, my schedule, my emotions, business, and everything else. I had a much easier time dealing with life outside of the prep. I can say I had a lot more fun. I enjoyed it so much more. And last but not least, the main difference is that I ate Chipotle practically every day. So I'll put on the screen pictures throughout prep and show day or whatever. And some people will say that I didn't get as lean as I did 2011, especially portrayed in like one specific picture down in Santa Monica Beach during my 2011 photo shoot. And I might have even agreed to that. I kind of do agree. There's a possibility that we'll combine with a good photographer that that I might have gotten leaner in 2011, but I can say confidently that I did bring my best physique in 2013. I wasn't, I might have been like 0.5% leaner in 2011, but I was much better in 2013. I had more muscle. I lost the thigh gap thing I had going on, bigger muscles everywhere. I was better at posing. I had more poise. And my legs, like I said, were brought up. They came up something vicious. So that was great. So in 2013, the first show I did was in June. It was the NGA Folsom show. I took first place in my class. A fellow 3DMJer took the overall trophy and pro card in the NGA, and that was Caleb Ines. Awesome physique, came in just a little bit more conditioned than me, so it totally made sense. I didn't have any problems with that. At the second show, this was the Muscle Mayhem 2013. I took first place in my class, and then in the overall, it was me, Caleb, who had already beat me, and it was Kevin Riley as well. And if you guys don't know Kevin Riley, he's got a future in the sport. He's one of the freaks and just got amazing muscle bellies, and once again it made sense. And I mean, honestly, there's no way any of us was gonna beat him, no matter how conditioned we were. And yeah, honestly, I was extremely pleased and happy that I brought my best physique to those stages. It was way better than 2011. All right, so failures and successes. One of the big differences with this prep was I was using my Fitness Pal every single day actively, took each day as it came, and I allowed myself a little bit more flexibility as compared to my 2011 prep in terms of food choices, quantity of foods, and I was able to be much more social. I was able to go to restaurants with my friends, eat out with family, as long as I kind of just guesstimated foods, guesstimated food quantities, and just kind of guesstimated my macros. I was still losing weight. For example, I went to Europe, I went to Body Power Expo in the United Kingdom, and Chris and I, it's funny, I brought a food scale, but my battery was dead. So we didn't even have a food scale. We just guesstimated macros and obviously read nutrition labels and stuff, and we still lost weight when we were down there. We still lost weight and looked better without even a food scale. So it was cool that we kind of gained that guesstimation skill from having actually tracked macros in 2013 and since 2011. Just all that experience helped us, and even to this day I still have the ability to look at a freaking sweet potato and be like, yo, that's 50 carbs you got there, you know? With that said, with 2011 being a very quick, aggressive, and kind of like meal planned prep, practically, it was my own meal plan. I kind of took 2013 a little bit too relaxed in terms of nutrition accuracy. Don't get me wrong, my training in 2013 was way better, way better, and that's probably one of the big reasons why my physique looks so much better, is my training was so much even more on point. Obviously I was stronger and bigger, of course, but my training was on point. But I must admit that I would have came in a little bit leaner had I eaten out, you know, at Chipotle specifically, a little bit less, especially towards show day. So I brought as much muscle as I possibly could. I brought as much fullness as I possibly could, and even to the point of like steroid accusations everywhere. Yeah, no one's this full. The reason why I was doing such a slow prep. But you know, I didn't bring as much shreds as I possibly could have. And to be completely honest with myself, you know, had I came in to that first show where Caleb won, maybe 2, 3, or even 5 pounds leaner, it's way easier said than done. You know, had I grit my teeth and really, you know, one, been more accurate, and two, just lowered those macros via being more accurate and stopping eating Chipotle. Trust me, Eric Helms did his job. I was the one that screwed up and was eating out way too often. You know, had I came in a little bit leaner, I could have, I mean, I don't know what would have happened, but I could have, you know, taken home a first place, an overall trophy. And, you know, not that it even matters, but I could be like, yo, I'm an NJ pro, no big deal. But also one thing I want to share is that, you know, at my second show in 2013, I was against Kevin Riley. And to put things in perspective of how this sport is just goes, is that no matter how big or how shredded I am or even will be, there's probably no way that I would ever beat a guy like Kevin Riley on stage. And I'm talking the 40-year-old, been lifting for 25 years, jacked, most jacked naturally possibly version of myself. The 45-year-old dad version of myself, where I've been lifting my entire life. I've been lifting for 30 years. Even that wouldn't be able to beat Kevin Riley. So it's something that you have to kind of realize, is that genetics play a huge factor in bodybuilding, and sometimes there's absolutely just nothing you can do against people like that. So you have to come to terms that it's really about bringing your best. You can't control who's going to show up at a show. You can't control how many people are going to be there, but you can control your own development, your own, you know, muscularity and conditioning, how well you pose, and those are the things that you got to worry about that you can worry about, and you have to base your own progress on yourself and not let necessarily which trophy you get determine your value or determine your success. You have to have markers outside of that so that you don't get crushed emotionally just because you're not the most genetically gifted. You might not be the most genetically gifted, and if you constantly put everything on that first place trophy, you're going to be disappointed. You will know whether or not you brought your best physique. You will know whether you tried your hardest and did everything you could. For example, in 2011, definitely did everything I could. 2013, I didn't really do all that I could, and I know that. You can control those things, but you can't control who shows up. Most of all, you can't control who the parents are of the people you're competing against. In other words, you can't control their genetics and their DNA. Another thing is, if you have a coach, I think you really owe it to them and yourself to be accurate with your macros, which was something I wasn't doing, because when you eat out, when you eat Chipotle, you can be somewhat accurate. Yes, I got to really low levels of body fat, but I could have been just a little bit more shredded, which in the end makes a huge difference. So you kind of do owe it to yourself and your coach and whoever's helping you that you're accurate with your macros, especially the closer you get to your show. Otherwise, you may be wasting your money if you've hired a coach, or you'll be wasting a coach's time as well, and that kind of sucks. So just know those things and know that the most accurate way to go is by not going out to restaurants every single day and not eating Chipotle every single day. And last but not least, even if you think you know how to pose, keep practicing. You really have to stick with it. So once again, I have to thank Jeff Alberts for really ingraining into me, one, how to pose, and two, how important it is at shows. And it's one of the reasons why I have 3 first place trophies right now. Not that they necessarily mean anything. All they mean is that I displayed the best physique in a given category at a given show in a given organization. The value is really in myself and what I've done and how I create the value. But posing is very important, and the judges may see that you have the best physique, but if you don't display the best physique, then you're not bringing it. And last but not least, no matter how prepared, smart, or whatever you are, you can always learn, you can always read books, you can always interact with people, and you can always, there's always information and knowledge out there. In 2013, I read tons and tons of books during cardio, and man, it was awesome. But another thing, you also can have self-worth outside of your contest prep. And that was something I kind of really discovered in 2013. So if you're still here with me, 1, I gotta thank you, and 2, there's probably a good chance that you are a competitor or a future competitor. So, hats off to you. Good luck in your future endeavors in the hobby/sport of natural bodybuilding, guys. Here are the key takeaways for this video. 1, science. Science. Obviously, experience is extremely important. So is science and how you apply it. There's a science to how things work in this world. The human body is no exception. Losing body fat is simply a matter of a caloric deficit, along with optimizing your macronutrient intake on a regular basis, and also by optimizing your training, you will be able to optimize your fat loss and muscle retention. I didn't know about any of those back in 2010 and 11. But once I, brought on 3D Muscle Journey, I was pushed and brought into the world of, wow, there's actually science to this? That's incredible. Key point number 2, structure. It's all about having a plan and executing it. So, like I said, you need a plan and you need metrics that you can track. So in terms of nutrition, in terms of getting lean, it's about your weight on the scale And of course, I'll give you a brief, how do you weigh yourself, guys? You weigh yourself in the morning, you wake up, you go to the bathroom, you pee, you poo, and then you step on the scale before you drink or eat anything. And that's how much you weigh. You don't weigh yourself at the gym after you've eaten 12 Quest bars or after a trip to In-N-Out Burger, okay guys? Your body weight is an important metric, as well as your macronutrient intake and your caloric intake. These are things that you track, you measure, you keep track of them over time, and you change the macronutrients and calories based on the weigh-ins. Also, you need a plan of what to do when what happens, when whatever happens, when this happens, when that happens, and that's where having a coach helps a lot. Next tip is go to a bodybuilding show before ever competing in one. Trust me. And here's a big one. If you're a newbie to natural bodybuilding, and it's something you want to get into, honestly, if you can afford this, if you can afford to hire a coach, a high quality one, somebody that you can trust, someone that deserves trust, man, it will fast track your results so much. If it's a personal friend perhaps, who's a contest prep coach, or he's done this before, he's experienced, he has the knowledge, get them on as a mentor. It'll help you out so much. Go ahead and you could take that route if someone's willing to coach you for free. That's awesome too, but just know that sometimes there's this weird psychology going on where if, you guys will feel me on this, but there's a weird psychology when you don't pay for something, you're not as serious about it. Like for example, I've helped some people with contest preps or with coaching before, and they were never as serious as the people that paid me. And it just works that way quite often. So sometimes I'll even recommend you guys just pay someone, even if they're doing it for free. Pay them. That way, there's a lot of psychology behind this, guys, with marketing and sales. But when you pay someone, trust me, you will be more serious about it. But of course, if you want to take the free route, go ahead. Just know that you've been warned that you might not be as serious had you actually paid for it. Now, if you don't want to hire a coach because you'd rather gain the experience yourself through firsthand, that's your prerogative. If you want to have like 5 back-to-back 2010 shows like me, where you fail, and then finally learn, go ahead and do that. But like I said, you will fast track your results if you just hire a coach. Now, here's where we get into a funny topic. There's so many resources online that you can totally just look all this stuff up and figure it out for yourself. And so many people have done that before. I know many myself who have never hired a coach, firsthand, or never hired a coach themselves, and they learn things on their own. But it's possible. I've thrown you so many resources. I've given you enough information just through my 1,000 videos that you could have learned macros just through me. But it's my opinion that if you're a complete novice to bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding, you want to get into natural bodybuilding, and you think or you say that you can't afford to hire a reasonably priced coach, then it's my opinion that natural competitive bodybuilding is probably not for you, or you have more important things in this world that you need to address, such as how you choose to spend your money. Because if you don't hire a coach, that means that you'd have to learn everything. It would take you a lot of time, a lot of time compared to simply hiring a coach. In other words, how valuable is your time to you? How valuable is your time to you? That could be a totally separate video, but ask yourself, how valuable is your time to you? You can give yourself a dollar figure if you want. Is your time worth $10 an hour, $20 an hour? Personally, I know my time is worth hundreds of dollars an hour. So that's why I personally recommend hiring a coach, because I value my time. What's funny is this, even after I hired a coach, 3MJ back in 2011, still there was so much more about natural bodybuilding. There was so much else that I still didn't know. There's more to it than just diet and nutrition, and that's where Beyond the Build comes in. This is a book written by my good friend Andrea Valdez. She partnered up with Jeff Alberts on this book. Beyond the Build is, like I said, about everything else you need to know about natural bodybuilding besides the nutrition and training. This includes dozens of topics that aren't too often talked about here on Facebook, on Instagram, even on YouTube videos. And some of these topics include the following: what occurs at a competition? What's the setup and format of a show? And what specifically does a bodybuilder do at a show? What kind of sport is bodybuilding? What's the judging criteria that natural organizations go by, and what are they looking for in terms of the ideal bodybuilding physique? Oh, here's an important one. What even are the natural bodybuilding organizations? Which ones are there? How do you find them and enter into, once you know the organizations, how do you find the shows? How do you enter to participate in them? How do you become a pro? What types of shows are there? And what are the different divisions and classes? What are the current banned substances that you can't take? What are the current banned substances that you can't take if you want to compete in natural bodybuilding shows? And how can you actively avoid accidentally taking one of these substances? Come showtime, what can you expect in terms of the drug testing, in terms of the polygraph testing and the urine analysis test? What are some tips on presentation in terms of your posing suit, in terms of your posing trunks, and where can you even buy these posing trunks? I don't recommend getting the pair that I purchased back in 2010. There's a place that I now purchase my posing trunks that I highly recommend. This book has information and tips on tanning, dream tan, as well as spray tan. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Andrea goes over topics such as mentality during prep, and this is one of the things that could have really helped me, especially back in 2011, which was my first contest prep, or my first real one. I'll be completely honest right now, guys. You are either going to firsthand experience the full wrath of emotional and psychological just mind fuckery, really, or you'll find it here in this book. You'll get tips on balancing friends, family, and social life. You'll also be forewarned and given tips about the reverse diet mentality. You could also call those the post-competition blues, or the post-contest blues, which I myself actually experienced quite a bit of post-2011, even a little bit post-2013, but you kind of get hit with these feels that you're really only going to read about it here unless you've actually experienced them yourself. Here's something that I personally find extremely helpful. It would have helped me even in my 2013 prep, to be honest. And that's, Andrea created a timeline from 12 months out to show day of things to work on, things to think about. 12 to 8 months out from a show, these are the things that you got to do. 8 to 4 months out from the show, you should probably do X, Y, and Z. 4 to 2 months out, do this, this, and this. And then as it gets closer and closer, 8 weeks out to 4 weeks out, and then 4 weeks out to 2 weeks out. And then the final things that you should do 1 week out. She covers so many of these different things that you may miss completely. You maybe completely miss these things if you're kind of just freestyling it yourself. I missed these things in 2013 and 2011, and I would highly recommend, if just for this. I think it's also really cool that Andrea has included a week of show checklist. So like, these are the things that you really want to do to be prepared for doing your first show, because the more prepared you are, the more comfortable you're going to be, the better you're going to be on stage. And oh man, this is something huge, and I just remembered it, guys. Wow. Okay, cortisol. Cortisol. For me personally, guys, the more nervous I am, the less sleep I get, and the crappier I look the next day. So if I don't get sleep because I'm so stressed and worried and I'm not prepared, I look bad. So it's funny because I looked way better off stage, or my physique was better before stepping on stage in 2011 and 2013, simply because cortisol levels through the roof, water retention through the roof, nervous, anxious, my body reacts. Personally, my body reacts huge in a negative way when I'm really nervous, when I'm from not having slept well, from not being properly prepared. Wow, I'm kind of actually surprised I just remembered that. And there's also a list of what you should remember to bring in your show day bag. And that's also a list that would have helped me even in 2013. It definitely, of course, would have helped me in 2011 and in 2010, but even in 2013, it would have helped. Oh, and one more thing, guys. What's included with Beyond the Build is a posing guide book by Jeff Alberts himself. The man that taught me how to pose, the man that took his time, took me under his wing, showed me how to pose, fixed every single mandatory and symmetry pose. He has created a 60-page posing guide with angles, like there's like lines. It's laid out perfectly. There's so much detail. He tells you exactly where to put your feet, exactly where to put your head, your elbows. In every single pose, he goes from the toes to the head and walks you through exactly how you can best display your physique. It's not just about the physique you have, the physique you bring. It's about the best physique you display to the judges, because that's all the judges see. They're not going to measure your arms or measure your body fat percentage or take you to a fitness center and put you in a dunk tank. They're simply going to look at you. So you have to display your best physique possible. In Jeff Alberts' guide to posing, it includes tons and tons and tons of pictures of every single pose, all the mandatory poses, muscularity and conditioning poses, the symmetry round poses. Andrea and Jeff Alberts have honestly put together a product that I can straight up just say, dude, you guys should probably get this. The same way that long time ago, I was like, guys, 3D Muscle Journey is the bomb. 3D Muscle Journey is awesome, and you should definitely, consider hiring a coach, if not 3DMJ. In the same way I kind of gave you guys, those tools and resources. I told you, Lyle McDonald and Alan Aragon, like those are guys you should follow. And I'm constantly giving you guys the best mentors to follow, the best products. Now this is something I will add to the list right now that I highly recommend for all first-time novice beginners. If you're gonna step on stage this year, next year, or sometime in the future, I highly recommend getting Beyond the Build by Andrew Valdez and Jeff Alberts. Guys, I've set it up so you can go to contestprepguide.com to purchase Beyond the Build from Andrew Valdez and the posing guide from Jeff Alberts. But it's only gonna be on that website for a limited time. I don't know, honestly, how long I'll have it at that URL. But for now, go to contestprepguide.com, contestprepguide.com, and snag this book. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was kind of a doozy. It was a big one, but hopefully it helps a lot of people who want to step on stage someday. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Thanks for showing love. Make sure to like this video, share it with some friends if they want to get into natural bodybuilding. And I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget, once again, to check out contestprepguide.com. Link in the description box. And I'll see you soon. Peace out.
Whoa. Good job, babe.